A 20-year-old just made the entire 400-meter world nervous. And now the biggest question in athletics is dividing fans everywhere. Is Samuel Ogazi the future world record holder, or is everyone getting carried away way too soon? Because what this Nigerian teenager just did wasn't supposed to happen. Not to someone who only started running at 14 years old. Not to someone who was told he was already too late. And definitely not to someone chasing one of the most untouchable records in track and field. Yet somehow, Samuel Ogazi stopped the clock in 43.38 seconds, the fourth fastest performance in history, just 0.2 seconds away from one of the greatest marks the sport has ever seen. Think about that. Most of the greatest 400-meter runners started training as children. 6 years old, 7 years old. They spent their entire lives preparing for this event. Oghazi didn't even discover competitive athletics until he was 14. That's why this story sounds almost impossible. Some fans already believe he's the next king of the 400 meters. Others say breaking a world record is a completely different challenge, because history is full of athletes who looked unstoppable until they reached the biggest stage. But one thing nobody can deny: the stopwatch doesn't lie. Back in 2019, Samuel Ogazi wasn't a superstar. He wasn't even an athlete. He entered a school competition in Kaduna, Nigeria, almost by accident. One local coach, Sani Mohammed, watched him race and immediately saw something special. That single conversation changed everything. Within 1 year, Oghazi became a national youth champion. Soon after, he earned a scholarship to the University of Alabama. His first indoor season in America wasn't spectacular. He couldn't even qualify individually for the NCAA Indoor Championships. Many young athletes would have lost confidence. Oghazi did the opposite. When the outdoor season arrived, everything changed. By the Paris Olympics, the teenager had become Nigeria's first Olympic 400-meter finalist in 36 years. He finished 7th against the best runners in the world. No medal, but something much more important: experience. Then came 2026. And suddenly, the improvement became unbelievable. First, he broke Nigeria's national record that had stood since 1987. Then he broke it again, and again, 3 national records in 1 month. But he still wasn't finished. At the NCAA Championships in Eugene, Samuel Ogazi delivered the race that changed everything. 43.38 seconds, a new collegiate record, the 4th fastest time ever run. Suddenly, the teenager who started sprinting at 14 wasn't just Nigeria's fastest man. He was standing alongside the greatest quarter-milers in history. And here's the scary part: he's only 20 years old. Most 400-meter runners don't reach their peak until their early or mid-20s, which means Oghazi may still be improving. Of course, there are still huge questions to answer. Running one historic time is one thing. Winning Olympic gold consistently is another. Breaking a world record that has stood for decades is even harder. The pressure, the injuries, the expectations, they only get bigger from here. But one thing is now impossible to ignore. Samuel Ogazi isn't just another rising star. He's become one of the most exciting athletes in global track and field. And if his improvement continues, the rest of the 400-meter world has every reason to pay attention. Because what began on a school track in Kaduna could end with one of the greatest stories athletics has ever seen. What if I told you the most dangerous man in sprinting right now isn't Noah Lyles? It's not Letsile Tebogo. It's not Kashane Thompson. It's Ferdinand Omenyala. And after what he just did in the Diamond League, the rest of the sprint world should be very worried. Because Omenyala isn't just winning races anymore. He's humiliating world-class fields. He's celebrating before the finish line. And he's sending a message directly to the Olympic champion. A message that says, your reign is over. Just a year ago, this sounded ridiculous. In all of 2025, Omenyala didn't run a single sub. 1-0 second, 100 meters. Not one. The African record holder looked completely lost. Critics said his best days were behind him. Many believed he'd never return to the level that made him one of the fastest men in history. But while everyone was writing him off, Omenyala was rebuilding. He changed his training. He increased the workload. He left Kenya and moved his preparation to South Africa. And when 2026 arrived, everything changed. The results came instantly. Sub 10, sub 10, sub 10 again. Then came Shanghai, a race he wasn't even supposed to be in. Late replacement, lane 8, the worst possible draw. And standing around him, Olympic champions, world champions, some of the fastest men alive. Yet somehow, Omenyala nearly stole the win. Only 1/100th of a second separated him from victory. That was the warning shot. 1 week later came the explosion. At the Diamond League in Xiamen, Omenyala lined up against another stacked field. Christian Coleman, Trayvon Bromell, Akani Simbine. The world's elite. For 30 meters, Bromell looked in control. Then Omenyala hit another gear. The stride opened up. The speed kept building. And suddenly, everyone else was chasing shadows. By the final meters, the race was already over. Omenyala knew it. The crowd knew it. Even his rivals knew it. With the finish line still ahead of him, he spread his arms wide and started celebrating. Not because he hoped he would win. Because he knew he had won. 9.93 seconds. Another statement. Another sub. 1, 0, and perhaps the biggest display of confidence sprinting has seen all season. The scary part. This confidence isn't fake. Before races, Omenyala studies every opponent. He watches their strengths. He analyzes their weaknesses. And when he sees names like Noah Lyles, Letziel Tobogo, or Kishane Thompson on the start list, he doesn't panic. His attitude is simple. I've beaten them before. That mentality carried him into Rome. A showdown against Olympic champion Noah Lyles in front of 60,000 fans. Lyles won, but Omenyala finished second, ahead of hometown hero Marcel Jacobs, ahead of more world-class talent. Another reminder that he belongs among the very best. And now the sprint world faces a question nobody expected to ask 6 months ago. Is Ferdinand Omenyala becoming the biggest threat to Noah Lyles' 5 sub 1-0 performances already in 2026? The confidence of a champion, the aggression of a man with something to prove, and major championships still ahead. The World Championships are coming. The Commonwealth Games are coming. And one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. Noah Lyles may still wear the crown, but Ferdinand Omenyala is no longer asking for permission. He's coming to take it.